Hello there. Welcome to lesson 6. We're going to look at social expectations today. So at the front of your book, make sure you're highlighting this lesson to show that you have done it, and then write today's date, whatever that is for you. And it's on page 20. We'll get started. Alrighty. So social expectation. So today we're going to look at how individual behaviour, so like our behaviour, towards others is socially constructed and influenced by social expectations. So we have an understanding of social constructionism. We looked at that in lesson 5. But today we're going to look at how do those behaviours that we socially construct influence our social expectations of people. So what I'll get you guys to do to start with is fill in that word bank. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 words today. And we've got a juicy meme there for you to digest as well. How good. So essentially social expectation, I know you're going to go through it here, but it would feel wrong if I didn't give you a little definition. So essentially our culture has different beliefs and values, right? And those different beliefs and values set certain expectations of our roles to play in society, right? So for example, me as a teacher, social construct has put me, and society and our culture and beliefs has put me in a position of power and authority, and with that there are certain social expectations of what I can and what I can't do, and what I should do and what I shouldn't do. Okay, so my job or my expectation is to provide you guys with an education that's relevant to the subject that you're studying. My legal obligation and expectation is that I provide you that education according to the syllabus dot points, which are government mandated by NESA, who are a government authority kind of board or company, I guess you could say. And say as a student, your individual behaviour is also increased by social expectation. So you're expected to come to school on time, dress in school uniform, use your manners when talking to your teachers, to get the work done in class. All those sorts of things are social expectations that differ from societies and different cultures. But again, we do that because that's what is deemed as acceptable, and we get rewarded when we do the right thing or when we meet those social expectations. Say a parent and a kid, if the kid cleans their room, the parent might give them pocket money. That's them positively reinforcing the social expectations and the type of behaviour that they want to see out of their kid, just as they'll get grounded if they do something that the parent deems is not expected of them. And the same thing happens at school. If you do the wrong thing in class, you get a detention, or you get Mr. Warren on your case, or whatever it is, right? So essentially we endorse those norms and behaviours and values because we want people to behave and act in a certain way, because if everyone does that, then society is deemed to be successful, and we were deemed to be at peace, I guess, and blossom and flourish. So what I want you to do is list an example of a social expectation in your own micro and meso world, and I want you to talk about how they're reinforced. So it could be a social expectation that is reinforced positively or negatively. I don't mind. I just want you to pick an example from your micro world and write it out there, and then the same in your meso world and write it out there. Now, one thing I wanted to do with social expectations was apply the concept of gender to social expectations, because that's an area that there is a lot of expectation placed depending if you identify as male or female. Now, this was a study done in 2017, and they got a lot of people to type in the traits that they associated with men and women. So it's only a few years old, and I thought it was interesting because we often say, and I mean in fact we said it last lesson, that a lot of our social expectations and how we've reconstructed the idea of gender in contemporary society has in a lot of ways reversed those traditional stereotypes that we had. So if someone was to ask you today, is gender equality a reality, most people would lean towards saying yes in most circumstances. And the reason that we can say yes, follow my train of thought here, is because our beliefs and values around gender has changed, right? Or has it? According to this study, they asked both men and women what they valued the most in men and women, respectively. So men and women both said, what do they value in men the most? And men and women said, what do they value in women the most? And they were given a list, and here's what came up. So the top trait for men was honesty and morality, so having a good moral compass, like good values and things like that. Whereas for women, it was physical attractiveness was the top value. So if I'm thinking at the moment, compared to the traditional stereotypes of women, how they were just a lot of the time considered sexual objects for the pleasure of men, which is, I don't agree with, FYI. But that is the top trait there. Again, objectifying and trying to say that that's the top value. Whereas if we look at that for men, it's a fair way down the list. Only 11% of people said that that's what they valued the most. So that was interesting. If we then look at the second one, professional and financial success in men, and empathy, nurturing and kindness in women. To me, what I'm thinking is that's around jobs and the role that men and women play. So for example, in traditional male stereotypes, you'd look at the men going out to work and having that pressure for professional and financial success, and the woman here is empathy, nurturing and kindness. Now to me, that, especially the empathy and nurturing, really links back to childbearing and staying at home and looking after the kids sort of thing. So again, this was only done in 2017. So what we're seeing here is that people, I guess, despite what we are saying about gender equality and where people are trying to go with it, according to this study, now it's only one study, but a lot of people are still thinking in that traditional headspace. So I thought that was quite interesting. If we go down the line a little bit, so intelligence is the third highest in women, but for men it was quite low, only 8%. But there were different things that they said for women that they didn't say for men, which I thought was interesting as well, like the ability to multitask. That's not a desirable trait in men at all. And there was competence. Just being a competent human being wasn't a value that people put here in men. So all the rest of them are there. But even again, if we go through that idea of strength and toughness, like that's a very traditionally masculine thing, whereas for women that was quite low at 5%. And then professional and financial success is only 8% here compared to 23%. So that's almost triple for men. So I thought that was interesting. And then if we look at this here, they also asked certain statements, and they wanted the men and women to say whether they felt they faced pressure to do that. So for example, to support their family financially, 76% of men said that they feel pressure to do that. And only 40% of the women said that they felt pressure to do that. And it was the same with being successful in their job and career. So we can see there that the data is still very traditional in our social constructs of gender. But then we got the next two, being involved as a parent and physically attractive. Women both were quite high on that, whereas men were a lot lower. So it was kind of reversed. So I guess what I want us to answer here in this question, does this study show continuity or change in regards to conservative and traditional gender stereotypes? So answer that question and reference the information here. Now that's not to say that gender hasn't come leaps and bounds in terms of how we view it today and what our expectations around gender equality is. It's just interesting that people are still in that traditional mindset. Anyway, so have a look at that. what I want you guys to do now here as well is this isn't a concept. If you were to link social media with the concept, it would be technology, power, identity, etc. But I want us to apply social media to social expectations. So since the inception of social media, inception just means creation, when it was invented. Since the inception of social media, social expectations and general pressures or anxiety to conform. So conform means that you have to follow and act and do what everyone else is doing. You need to conform, like say, with school, everyone's conformed because they all wear the school uniform, right? You need to follow and act how everyone else is doing it. So since the inception, so since the creation of social media, social expectations and pressures and anxieties to conform to certain social standards has increased significantly. Social expectations have always existed. They've never gone away. Like even in ancient Egypt, there were certain social expectations on, what does a slave look like? How do they dress versus a commoner? They've got the pyramid, their hierarchy of, pharaoh, viziers, warriors, farmers, etc. Social expectations have never gone away, but they have intensified, so they've gotten a lot more prominent or bigger in contemporary society as we are exposed to more content and information than ever before. Especially, I would say, the global social expectations has really taken off with social media. We're becoming a lot more global in how we're trying to act and behave because we're being influenced by the amount of things we're seeing on social media, especially when people are spending hours and hours on it every day. It's really intensified. What I want you to do in regards to that kind of introductory statement, there is 2 clips I want you to watch. One is about Louise Delage, who did a social experiment on her Instagram where it was a fake account and they wanted to see how she could get the most followers the quickest, and it's really interesting what she did and what kind of social expectations she adhered to get people to follow her and like her, and it's very interesting. So watch that clip, type that link in, and then I want you to answer these 2 questions here. Then I want you to do the same with this clip called the Insta Lie, and hopefully none of you do these things because that would be a bit disheartening. But if you do, I guess it's a realization that maybe you don't have to fall for the social media tricks and hacks. So watch that, answer those 2 questions. And I want you to do a summary task. So what I want you guys to do at the end of this lesson is to find a popular YouTube channel or video or a popular Instagram post or TikTok person, whoever it is. I'll write that. And I want you to note the name of them, whatever they are in your book, how many views, followers or likes it receives depending on the different platform that you've picked. I then want you to explain why you think it is so popular. Why does it have that many followers? Why does it have that many likes or views? And then I want you to answer this question. How can the message be identified as shaping or adhering to social expectations for an audience? Now, I'll explain the 2 key words here is shaping or adhering. Now, shaping means, and again, it's an or question, so you pick one or the other. How can it be identified as shaping social expectations? So shaping means that they're setting the trend, essentially. And adhering means simply that you're following that to try and fit in to the social expectation and the social groups, right? So I want you to tell me whether their message is either shaping, so they're creating a new social expectation for everyone to follow, or they're adhering to it, they're following it to try and conform to that sort of behavior. Now, you thought you were done. Wrong. I forgot to mention this in the other video as well, so make sure you pay attention here. What I'm going to get us to start doing, and I'll tell it in the videos as well to make it easy, but we're going to do note summaries now as well. So essentially whenever there is a word bank or a bit of core notes like here in lesson 5, what I want you guys to do is to start to summarize them. Now, I've grouped them all in dot point. Oh crap. Woo. I've grouped them all in dot points, okay? So what I would like you guys to do in your books as well, under your lesson 6 heading, and then under your lesson 5 heading as well, I want you to summarize that dot point. And then I want you to summarize that dot point. And then so the idea is that underneath, and this will become really important in year 12, but we're going to start strong in year 11. The idea is that when you do a summary of each of those dot points of information and you compact it into one neat little sentence, right? When you go back to your book to study and revise, you've got the core bit of information that you need written down in dot points for you. And because I've done it in the dot points, it makes it easier for you guys to track, to know that you only need to summarize that little bit of information and then the next and so forth. So essentially you would write the lesson 6 social expectation heading as your summary, like we did in the past few lessons, and then under social expectation you're just going to end up with 3 dot points here, okay? One sentence, one sentence, one sentence. It might be 2 if you need to use that, and that's okay, however it works for you, but I want you to summarize the key information out of those 3 dot points. And then I want you to do the same here for lesson 5. Again, 1, 2, 3. So here, because this is just the definition, you might decide that that's just fine, just to copy straight in, right? Or you might combine those two because they're quite short, okay? But when they get a bit longer, again, just summarize that into the one key sentence. Now, I'm not expecting you guys to summarize tables. I'm not expecting you guys to summarize your written responses or answers, just the bits where we've essentially done word banks or there's just dot points of information. Again, I'll explicitly tell you each lesson where and how I want you to do it. So for the record, I want you to do it for lesson 5 for these written summaries, for these, okay, and that's the lesson 5 summary done, okay? And then here, I want you to do it for lesson 6 on this. And you don't have to summarize the meme, but you can if you want. Extra challenge for you. Don't have to do that. And again, here you don't have to summarize all of that, but you still do have to do the summary task on top as well, okay? Remember, trust in my methods and you will achieve success. See you later.